Welcome to Innovate and React. I'm Kevin Harris, and in today's episode we will look at how innovation can help to transform the chemical industry and how we can get research knowledge from the universities into application. I'm here with Dr. Petra Ryl, who is the Innovation and Talent Lead at greenCHEM Berlin. Welcome, Petra.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for the invitation to this podcast. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, maybe let's start with your background. What brought you to greenCHEM?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a biochemist and did my PhD at a university. However, publishing was not really my thing. So I was always thinking about who cares about my niche research topic in the end. And of course, there were buzzwords like link to a future, which will help us to develop anti-cancer drugs or something else. But this basic research was so far away from any application in the end. So afterwards, I became an employee at a young startup. And this was really a great chance because I really liked how science turned into an application. So really solving a customer problem.
What startup was that?
This was the Inventix DX, doing a pathogen detection system platform in the end for pathogen detection in water systems. So, for example, a fast Legionella test in water.
Interesting.
And there I was also in the position later on as product manager. That means being the interface between the researchers in the lab developing the test, but also on the other side, the customers, and understanding their needs for the product, that it's really a useful product in the end. And after this experience there, I followed my interest in sustainability because I was really triggered by microplastics and the fact that we all eat the amount of one credit card microplastics per week. And research clearly demonstrates the health consequences of it, like cancer, but also a multitude of other diseases. But banning this mass-produced and omnipresent plastics from our everyday lives is not that easy at all. Yeah. And I always question myself, why inventing a drug to try to heal patients and not dealing with dealing only with the consequences of it, but not looking at Mother Nature and the negative effects of plastic pollution there. So for my understanding, we had to start from the source of the problem, so the plastic production itself.
Yeah, so actually swapping plastics for other materials, or in what sense?
Exactly. So, and this is really comes down to the point, reinventing the materials to get really sustainable material that does not harm us and the nature as well. So, and this finally brought me to greenCHEM, the ecosystem for green chemistry in Berlin. And here we support entrepreneurs with all what they need to create a bridge between this scientific innovation and real world applications. So therefore, it all comes together here.
Bringing startups to life basically with ideas related to green chemistry. But maybe let's go one step back and talk a bit about the motivation and green chemistry more. You already mentioned that we would like to swap out plastics, for example, although they are very convenient. We should maybe think about other solutions. And this also reminds me a bit of my bachelor thesis, where I was also doing catalysis, and catalysis research is also a thing that really pushes this green chemistry forward, because using catalysis and not using stoichiometric amounts of reactants is also one of the principles of green chemistry. And those always have been motivation for my research as well. But you at greenCHEM probably also have a connection to these 12 principles.
Absolutely. So John Warner is one of the co-founders of the 12 Principles of Green Chemistry, is a friend of our ecosystem. And he says that 60 up to 70% of sustainable materials we will need in the future are not invented yet. And this is a huge potential which is not unfolded. And therefore, we really need technology transfer, especially in chemistry, because chemical molecules are all around us. It's the food we are eating, it's a smartphone we have in our hands, it's a building we are sitting in, it's a car we are driving in, it's everything around us. So, and just recently we exceeded 8 out of 9 planetary boundaries and the current chemical industry. So the way how we produce chemicals and materials is largely responsible for this because they have a linear and fossil-based economy. But the good news in this is that there is this huge unmet impact and this huge unmet potential yet, where we reinvent how we produce materials. So based on regenerative and local resources and raw materials, but also using non-toxic catalysts, as you mentioned. And of course, the products, but also forming finally the sustainable materials for our personal and planetary health in the end. And this all needs to be in a circle finally, in a circular economy approach, because this is how nature also works, because there is no waste, because waste isn't waste until you waste it. So therefore, we have to rethink what we may do in the end with our materials.
Yeah, exactly.
And this linear take, make, waste is not anymore a chance to pursue.
Yeah, but the problem is that this really requires a fundamental change, because most of the chemicals and consequentially also the chemical plants we have, they're so much integrated and everything is like wheels working together. And if we change a few things, we have to basically change the whole thing. And this is a huge challenge where maybe chemical giants are not that prone to do that, because it would require a huge investment and they could just not use the assets they already have. And this is maybe why also startups and young companies have actually an advantage, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So what we need is, in the end, disruptive innovations. So that means we not need a slightly more energy efficient battery, for example. We need really to rethink the battery completely, for example. So as Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, he wasn't looking for a slightly more efficient way to use a candle or an oil lamp, but rather he was reinventing the concept of how light is produced in the end. Disruptive innovations, those that replace previous technologies in the long term. And here comes a problem for the big companies. Their entire business model, but above all the production facilities from BASF or Covestro are based on fossil raw materials. So whereas startups are just developing their technologies, and if they do it in a sustainable way right from the beginning and overcome, of course, challenges in scaling the technology, then sustainability is automatically deeply integrated in their company's DNA. And here especially, I think that smaller companies like startups are really agile and can respond also much more quickly to any opportunities that arise, such as geopolitical challenges or even the corona crisis and the collapse of entire supply chains or even others. So, and given that we are currently living in a time of multiple crises, I truly believe that agility brings in an essential market advantage, and startups are much better in exploring this advantage than bigger companies because of just their structure, their history, their business model, everything.
They don't have to take care of all the stuff they already built. They can just start from scratch and then tackle one problem and do it much better than the giants and then be successful in this niche, although they might not have the resources that the big companies have. Could you share some examples from your network where startups were successful in such a niche?
First of all, I want to say that I really like the diversity of sustainable technologies in our ecosystem. Currently, we have over 60 startups and pre-seed technology transfer teams are part of our community, and I would like to highlight some of this. And their technologies ranges, for example, from algae-based foil alternatives, from Mujo as alternatives to plastic packaging, or even sustainable ship coatings to avoid toxic plastics in our oceans from Clean Ocean Coatings.
Interesting.
Moreover, there is a variety of carbon capture technologies and utilization technologies, like Ucaneo, with one of the largest direct air capturing plants in Germany, and Spark e-fuels. They create from captured carbon e-fuels for aviation, but also the team CALS is storing CO2 in concrete in construction industry. And moreover, we have high-performing battery technologies, a really hot topic right now, without using any rare earth metals, like Mana Energy is doing it, but also others. And last but not least, there's also PFAS absorber materials from Petra that take back forever chemicals from the environment and especially from the water we drink every day. So this is just a small selection of great green chemical innovations. I'm sorry that I couldn't mention more of the community members due to the time, but I think this shows the variety from water to batteries to building to many different sectors.
Yeah, very diverse. And all of them are really impactful challenges. I have also looked into the PFAS problem recently for electrolyzers. Replacing PFAS would be great if we find materials that have similar durability but are not as harmful as them.
Yes, absolutely. And here comes in this community aspects, because many startups are dealing with the same challenges in the end. And together as community, we have the credo founders support founders on eye level. That means we are really supportive with each other. And whenever somebody in a different field had faced a challenge and was solving this challenge, they are really openly exchanging their knowledge and their experience and their learnings with the community. So that really speeding up and also creating this momentum of together we are doing a great thing.
Interesting. That is always the benefit of a great network, I guess. I can imagine those CO2 captures and e-fuel companies have a good ground to work together on.
Of course.
So you really have a great network of startups, even with the possibility to collaborate. That's great. Let's now talk about how to get from the universities to these kinds of applications in startups and so on. One problem that PhD students or researchers at university face sometimes is they have a great idea, and we all, when we did our research at university, have this motivation, and in the start of papers we write how this research could impact the future. But in the end, most of the time, this research just is published in a paper, and then maybe some other researchers pick up on it and contribute. But it's not that easy to take actually action and take your research and put it into application in the real market and in a company. How do you support this knowledge transfer?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So in the end, there are different types of knowledge transfer. And as a German word, Wissenschaft illustrates quite clearly, the purpose of research is to create knowledge. This is often done by taxpayers' money. However, bringing this technology or transferring it to the market is exactly the other way around, because here we are taking the generated knowledge and earn money with it. So it describes the pathway from academic research into the market. And this can be done either by creating an own company, so a startup, or the technology can be transferred to an existing company, for example, by an industry collaboration or IP licensing. And we at greenCHEM don't mind where or how the technology is transferred to the market, as long as the sustainable potential of this technology is fully unfolded, and that only happens when the sustainable material is available for purchase. Because otherwise it stays to be a knowledge only on a paper, as you mentioned. Yeah. So it's like you as person and as PhD and researcher have to think about what you really, really want to do in your life. So is it only having an impact factor on a publication, or is it really making an impact with your research? And for the later one, technology transfer from academic research to a marketable application is the key. And here you will grow also in an exciting entrepreneurial journey yourself.
Yeah, I think that's also a bit of the direction you take in your studies early on. If you really want to pursue an academic career and become a professor, and then it's usually better to go for high impact papers, because research that is more in the fundamental way can have more interest by other researchers. So that, I would say, is more like the academic way. But when you have some small applications for a reaction or a new material, that usually, unless it's really groundbreaking, has not that much impact in the research community, but it could have a great impact in the market. And then that's where one could focus on trying to bring that to the market, right?
Yes, and therefore, for example, we at greenCHEM do a chemistry career talk. That means we have a panel discussion, of course, with a professor who did the academic path, but also with someone working in big industry, but also maybe a VC, so an investor, or someone working in regulations, but all have a PhD in chemistry or close related field. So, and in the end, it's really like about also your personality and what you want to do in your life. But we also have to be realistic that becoming the next professor, only 1% of the PhD candidates will reach this goal. Yeah. And currently, the big industries, the big corporates are not really highly engaged in recruiting personnel because of their challenges they have to face due to the Chemiewende. So they are more spending trying to rethink their business model and try to save costs at the personal side. And this makes the entrepreneurial way much more likely. And to get really in touch with startups from our community, we also do regularly this startup hopping tour. It's like a bus hop on, hop off tour where we basically do not sightseeing at Berlin, but we visit, of course, startups. That it's really like...
They are all based in Berlin then?
In Berlin often. That they really see startups, the people behind it, and also their mindset behind it, this growth mindset, this, okay, let's take action, there's a challenge, we can solve it, or find a way working around or whatever, but we can fix it in the end. And also that becoming... I mean, not everybody needs to become their own founder from their academic research, but also working as employee in a startup is really also a great experience, as I have done it. And it's really like a journey, and you learn so many things, and it's not about, this is my experience I had already. It's like having this growth mindset, okay, I don't know it yet, but I can learn.
Yeah. And that also kind of continues the way you're researching before, that you want to learn new stuff and then apply it. So that's a great way. And in Berlin, you said that there are already a lot of startups that could be visited, and you do this tour, which is great. So people early on, even in their bachelor's, or from what time can they get in touch with you?
As early as they want.
Yeah, that's great. Because in my studies, I think it was not really that visible until very late on that this would be an option. There was always the yeah, you gotta do a PhD, gotta do then even the postdoc maybe, and then you either end up in the industry or you do some academic work.
Yes, absolutely. Same for me. Yeah, and therefore we also go right to the students at the beginning. So we offer bachelor and master courses in green chemistry, but also in entrepreneurial thinking, that they really start from right from the beginning to ask what does the market need, and not this happy engineering. I want to understand something. I really want to create something in the end. So therefore, we have there also courses and the micro credential, which is a concept coming from the United States, that you do your master degree in chemistry or chemical engineering, for example, and have this add on as micro credential. That means you do additional courses in entrepreneurship in green chemistry. And also here, John Warner is giving guest lectures, online guest lectures. And then you get this additional certificate, and it's really great for your CV, because when you then apply in a startup, they really see, you have been in touch with startups, the startup scene before, and you have this mindset as well.
Interesting. So this is already a new way, basically, that you can pursue with chemistry.
And maybe to add on this, on the website greenchem.berlin, you will find also more information on our offers for students and researchers, but also for innovators and green-minded people in general. So there are much more offers around.
Yeah, great. So maybe let's go through an example. Like you have mentioned multiple ways of bringing knowledge from the research to application. So one would be a startup. What is a good way if you are in your master's or in your PhD and then think, okay, my research might have potential to become a startup?
Of course. It's first of all really essential that we all come from an academic point of view and perspective, and we are this techie, interested people wanting to understand how something works or how we can make something to work. However, we are never asking a customer or the market what is really essential. So therefore, it is really important to ask the market or a potential pilot partner as early on as possible. So in the end, it's talk to them, talk to not only one person, talk to many of them, and try to get the market perspective as early as possible. Because if you don't ask the market needs, you will be doing happy engineering until infinity without creating a product in the end that brings any added value to anyone. And if no one buys your product in the end, you run out of cash, and of course, then it was a waste. In time and money, but you learned a lot. So therefore, networking is really essential, and meeting the right people, but really this taking the opportunity that arrays, and don't wait until anything will happen or you finished your PhD or anything. Just go out, talk about things, and follow your intuition and your motivation behind it. So go out and talk.
And I think also talk to other disciplines probably, because, for example, all this business knowledge that other studies have, that I think is in the chemistry not that much in depth. So it's probably also beneficial to talk to some economists or something like that.
Absolutely. The key is an interdisciplinary team. So they need to somehow speak the same language, not in the depth, but need to have a common understanding of what is a technology about and where is the potential. Exactly, it's really hard to get this market perspective and this business expertise, because it's a whole new world, and you're just like at your first day at university, you're just new to it and have to learn and so many different things. So how to pitch, how to write a business plan, what would like investors to see, all these phrases there and everything. And this is nothing to do with your technology, and you are more familiar with the technology itself and maybe even scaling in the first steps. So therefore, the key is always try to group up and team up with people, becoming maybe also co-founders. And there we have also a great example in our community. A woman, Nicole, she was doing her internship as a master student in a early phase startup. So they were in a pre-seed phase at that state. Because the team worked really great together, she did her master thesis in this pre-seed startup, and finally became a co-founder of Porelio, the PFAS absorber material startup I mentioned beforehand. So finally, she was able to create her own position, her own future position, and the team is really like interdisciplinary, but is really willing to learn and willing to adapt also, and growing. And I'm really excited. So now they are incorporated since almost a year, and now they are fundraising, and we keep our fingers crossed, and that they will have a successful road in front of them.
Interesting. Yeah, that's also a great way of getting into the market, because nowadays, also, as you mentioned before, the big companies are not recruiting that much because of this whole energy crisis, the chemical transition. And then that way, if you find some bright minds and collaborate, you can basically make your own position. That's
And she didn't brought her own IP with her. It was like collaborating with others, because you always need more than one person, one brilliant idea to bring it to the market. So really this collaborative approach is really essential.
Yeah, definitely. I think that might also be this stereotype that if you have a great idea, you should not share it and basically do everything on your own until it's already a big thing, and then you can start talking to people. This probably won't work, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because then you are totally overwhelmed with all different tasks you have to do, either with purchasing a patent, but also you need to get the money from somewhere. I mean, even all public research funds end at a certain time, and usually you are not doing the invention at the first day. It's more or less the last day in your PhD thesis or master or a postdoc contract or anything. So you really need to find also financial funding. And here comes one problem in where in Germany we have a good system of public funding. However, in the deep tech sector, what green chemistry is, it's really hard to get this early phase validation programs because they expect already that you have a patent.
What is this validation?
It's, for example, a VIP Plus program. It's a national funding program, but for this you need to have a patent. And who is learning in their PhD how to file a patent or what's actually patentable and worth to protect? And so there are the patent offices at the universities or even institutes who can support you. And this is really essential, that you, before you publish anything, you really have to think about, is it an invention, how to protect it, because otherwise even public funding programs won't give you money, and nevertheless investors won't give you money later on. And this is really essential that you first protect your IP before you go and publish something like a paper or at a conference, a poster or something else.
So again, this conflict between the academic way and the company way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now it's coming at least a bit more common that also a filed patent is worth in a PhD. Of course, then you still have to write the entire thesis and things, but still there are ways how you can do it, but it's nothing you learn at university and that you are aware beforehand. So it's like really being intrinsically motivated and gain all information you need and go to the support from the university.
That's probably also very much dependent on the motivation of the PI. If they are entrepreneurial and maybe already have started some companies, then they know what to do. But if they don't, it's much harder. And that's where networks are very important.
Yeah, and also role models, like seeing what others do in a different sector. If I see someone doing sustainable batteries and I'm in this PFAS absorber material, it's like, okay, when they can do it in this sector, then I can do it also in my sector. So where is the point? So really like this seeing role models, and therefore we have this chemistry career talk, as I mentioned, but also startup hopping tour and also other formats where they see early on that it is possible, and also to try to generate this momentum at PIs also when they see, okay, there's also additional budget source we can get. Never mind if it's called validation program or later funding programs. So it doesn't have to be always DFG or anything. So there's more than just research funding.
Yeah.
And this is also a learning for professors. And this also helps when other professors in our ecosystem talk about their patents, talk about how the patents are brought to life in the end. Yeah, really essential, this role models.
Yeah, definitely. And the other way, or the second way you mentioned from bringing research to the market would be licensing of your work. How is that done?
In the end, the start is the same, because you need to understand the market and you need to protect your idea. And then in the end, also industry collaboration could be a good idea, because then you're collaborating with an SME or even a bigger company.
What's a SME?
Small and medium-sized enterprises.
Okay.
And then you are basically doing research on their real-world problem in the end. So it's like more an industry pull approach, because you're solving their problem by your research. But then it's more likely that this industry partner will take up the IP, which is usually sitting at the universities. And then licensing it. And there, as I mentioned, the patent offices are supporting you. And this is then in the end only a shorter time when you are in the driving seat as innovator to bring it to the market, because then the entire commercialization is done by the already existing company. So not you are going to be the founder, and not you need to know all legal aspects. It's more like negotiating, because you understand the market needs and know about the value from your IP. Then there need to be this progression that the patent is there, that it was filed in the end, and that it can be licensed. Also, there need to be negotiations, of course, between the universities, the innovators, but also the company or even multiple partners who are interested in licensing the patent. And the patent can be, for example, licensed for a certain application field, or even for like producing the material in the end. So there are several options, and it's really essential to dig deeper into this entire IP topic, also with a patent lawyer, for example. So get as many perspectives in the negotiation to find the best way for your technology in the end. So it's not nothing you can plan in detail beforehand.
You can stay in research if you are trying to do that, or it's more easy.
Yeah, this is then not basic research. This is then really applied research. So there's this difference between, you always need to get the market perspective and ask what is useful, but because you have this industry collaboration partner, it's quite more easy to get this.
And then there was also a third way.
Of course, so entrepreneurial way, that you have your own IP and bring it to a company. But in the end, we see the entire problem a bit more holistic, because there are also people like Nicole I mentioned before. She didn't brought her own IP with her, but she was really like working hard and being a driving force to bring the knowledge from somebody else, so from the co-founder, into the market. So therefore, the limiting aspect here is people who really want to get things done.
The
so
mindset.
in the end, Yeah. We really need brilliant people with a growth mindset spending their essential lifetime to create a better tomorrow. And we from greenCHEM are not interested where someone comes from, but more where you want to go to and what's your driving motivation behind it. And because of this people and IP thing, we bring together interested entrepreneurial thinking people with great IP and sustainable potential. So, and thanks to the financial support from the Federal Ministry of Research, Technology and Space, as well as Joachim Herz Foundation, we are able to hand out a 1-year scholarship to InnoTalents, as we call all this driving force people. And besides this financial support, we also provide the necessary lab infrastructure and can cover material costs, but also offer accommodations for talents coming from abroad to Berlin to really do things.
Yeah, that is really a problem in Berlin, to find some place to stay.
Yes. So therefore, to really get things quickly done, it's really essential to focus on the important things.
Yeah.
And in this perspective, it's important to get the technology to the market and not finding accommodation.
Yeah.
Exactly, which is a nightmare in Berlin. And therefore, moreover, the so-called Innovate call is linked to a high-quality validation program in collaboration with our partner, the Founder Institute Germany. And the great thing is that the application starts exactly now, so in February 2026. And even if you listen to this podcast episode later, there will be always a new cohort starting over and over during the next years. So in the end, what my key message is, if you really feel this deeper motivation and this deeper driving force into yourself of I really want to change things and create a real world impact, then please visit greenchem.berlin, the website where you find all essential information, and apply to the Innovate call. Never mind if you have an own IP from your research or a co-founder team yet, because we are bringing together talents and IP to create a sustainable materials for the future.
Providing the network and the infrastructure. So even if you're not from Berlin, it's worth visiting the website.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, you provide the network and the lab infrastructure, because it's usually also not easy when you're done with your PhD, then go somewhere. Sometimes it's possible to stay at uni and start something there, but that's not always a thing. So how do you help with this problem?
Of course. So lab infrastructure is really essential because you need a lab where you can synthesize, validate, and above all, scale your technology.
Yeah, that needs more space than a lab bench.
Yes, and especially at university, you always work in tiny lab scale, but to prove an application, you need more than that. Usually, your synthesis yields in like 5 grams, something like this. But when the first pilot partner asks you for 100 kilogram, how to get there? So therefore, we from greenCHEM provide the necessary infrastructure from the idea to the production scale. So here we have the IncoLab as a kind of lab container at the Technical University of Berlin, and the new building of the Chemical Invention Factory, which is currently under construction. And next year, we will offer nearly 40 fume hoods to talents and innovators to pursue the commercialization of their academic research. So, and moreover, there's also the Scale-Up Lab at the Free University of Berlin and partners like the startup Labor Schwed to scale up your technologies and really build the first pilot plant and finally the first of its kind production plants. So it's like a whole bunch of support doing all through all different technology readiness levels. From TRL1 to TRL9 in the end. This scale was coming from NASA and was adapted from Professor Schurmaker from TU Berlin to chemical innovations in the end. And you need different lab infrastructure at each different level you are in. And because we are partnering up and collaborating with many partners, it's really like Berlin is a place to be when you need infrastructure.
Yeah, so you actually also have contacts to the bigger chemical sites where you could also scale your technology to a significant level and not just the bench or even like a small pilot plant.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the chemical invention factories, there will be fume hoods where you can walk in and build your reactor in and things like this. So really like this initial steps and really like to also optimize and validate your technologies because it's not a linear reaction. So you can't adapt all the reaction parameters you are doing for a 5-gram synthesis to a 5-kilogram synthesis and nevertheless to a 500-kilogram synthesis. So this won't work at all. The higher you climb the ladder of the TRL levels, the more additional experience you need, which you haven't gained before as PhD, usually.
Yeah, also all this legislative part, like you have to do in Germany all these permitting. You have to do the BIMSCH permitting and stuff like that now.
Yeah, and here also other regulatory aspects come into place, like REACH regulatory affairs. So if you produce a chemical compound at a ton scale per year, then you need to fulfill certain regulation rules and so on. So that means entrepreneurship is in the end more than just a higher TRL level. So there are so many different aspects. So like IP I mentioned before, now regulatory aspects, but also understanding the customer, creating a business model from this, having a sustainable impact, where is the funding coming from, and there's also a team which we need to bring together and also develop their own role as leadership and things like this. So there are many different dimensions of readiness level, of innovation readiness level in the end. And this is also the reason why we adapted this innovation readiness level concept in different dimensions from the KTH Institute from Sweden, I think, and adapted to chemical innovations to really like give the pre-seed and technology transfer teams early on a better overview of in which different sectors they have to look to. Because if you are climbing up their TRL ladder, but are forgetting to secure your IP, no investor will ever invest in you or your startup.
Yeah, very important.
Or if you're understanding the customer need and building a business model out of it, but are forgetting the regulatory aspects, then you're also failing in the end, because then the law comes and hits you in a not so friendly way in the end, because you need to be compliant, of course, for the reason of protecting humans, but also protecting the environment. So exactly doing this lesson learned from what was not done before. I mean, PFAS was invented as we wanted to have this water peeling effect, this Lotusblüten effect at our rain jacket, for example, or in our pen to cook in the kitchen in. But it was only asked for the feature of the coating compound it should facilitate. And it was never asked before, is it harmful for environment or for humans? And this is now where regulation comes in and is nowadays really like more strict, maybe not strict enough yet, because still research is going on and what does PFAS do to our body and do to the environment, for example. But I think this basic concept of proving before that you're doing good and not bad is really essential. I mean, this is also what clinical trials are usually doing. It's showing the proof that this drug will be helpful in the end.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is also what needs to be adapted to the material world.
Yeah, so the more you scale, the more things you have to take care of and the more people you have to hire eventually. And then that is also where the networks are important again. Maybe one thing that I thought about when you talked about this roles is also that if you have the IP, you don't necessarily have to become the CEO. You can also bring the IP into the company, but then find someone who is great at all this stuff that the CEO does, what's not necessarily all the chemical knowledge you need, right?
Yeah, often I see in our community that the inventor is becoming the CTO, so the technology part, and is then adapting or hiring or getting in the team most likely a serial entrepreneur. So someone who has done the journey before and learned a lot before, and therefore has a much broader expertise and what's useful and also about do's and don'ts in front of investors and things like this. I don't say that it's not possible if you are the inventor becoming the CEO. It's also possible, but in the end, it's coming back to your personality and also your inner motivation. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Is it like, do you want to become the CEO? That means the business person, and your main task is to get the money into the company to be able that the CTO scales the technology, or is it the CTO part?
Yeah, that's especially at the natural scientists, chemists, physicists, they might enjoy more like the technical part and not the business part.
Which is totally fine. We need both of them,
Yeah, definitely.
and even more people around it.
And I think also the hiring part is very important. For that, you really need in-depth people knowledge and hire bright minds. It's also very crucial to grow a company.
Absolutely. And I mean, especially the co-founded team, which are usually 2 or 3 people, they see each other much more during the days than you see your wife or your husband. So it's like really like a marriage, and you really should think carefully beforehand. Is everybody taking up responsibility? Did we fulfill all roles and with different expertise and things like this? So is it really a good interdisciplinary team where all tasks can be covered? And if there's something still missing, you need to think about which are our essential tasks and where's our key technology, key secret source and everything. So what needs to stay in-house and what maybe can also be outsourced as, okay, then I'm getting a consultant or an agency doing the marketing stuff or doing supporting with their expertise in how to write a business plan and things like this. So there are also options in outsourcing several things, but it's always essential to keep your own technology, your secret sauce inside of your company and protect it.
Yeah, then maybe on your personal view, what are 3 tips that you would give someone who is in their early research career and thinks about starting a company or bringing their research into the market?
First of all, network, as I mentioned beforehand. And also this, even when you don't have an idea yet, engage early on. So be intrinsically motivated and see what are your opportunities. Go to a chemistry career talk, for example, go to conferences, go to the startup hubs all over Germany, and meet people and see role models and see how others are doing and get inspired in the end. So I think get inspired is the first aspect. Then, of course, when you start your journey, find a good collaboration partners like networks like greenCHEM, and there are also others in Germany around, like in Aachen and Munich and so on. And in the end, I think all comes down to this message from John Warner. We need to reinvent 60 up to 70% of the sustainable materials we will need in the future. So there's a huge playground in the end for everybody of us, and do it in a collaborative way. Because there are so many problems and so many things which need to be reinvented and get away from this fossil resource, that I think there's enough space for all of us and a good, healthy competition, so to say. Because competition is nothing bad or good. It's more like always ask, what can we learn from each other to get together the thing done? Because in the end, we are all sitting on one planet, so we are all sitting in the same boat. And when looking at the 8 out of 9 planetary boundaries, it's like urgency also.
Yeah.
It's like we have to act now, or actually 10, 20 years ago, but the next best choice to start is now. So
Yeah, definitely. So it's also a great time to thinking about starting a company in the chemical space. There's a lot of problems that we need to solve, and engineering and chemistry is really the way of solving those problems. Then, as the last question in this episode, what is your favorite discovery in chemistry?
A great question. Thank you for this. Maybe it's not a well-known discovery yet. However, as I listened to the founder of Carbon One, it was so mind-blowing to me. So last year, Marek Szyczynski from Carbon One, a serial entrepreneur in our community, was our guest speaker at our community meeting and shared his knowledge about pilot plant design. And he invented a sustainable way of green methanol production as fuel for shipping industry. And the methanol production was invented like over 100 years ago. However, with very high temperatures, over 800 degrees, very high pressure, over 300 bars, and a product yield of only something like 30%. So it's like 70% is not the product in the end. So what a waste. And I really couldn't understand why these harsh conditions are required, whereas Mother Nature, as I'm a biochemist, shows how we can produce and facilitate chemical reactions and can be done at room temperature and without any toxic catalyst, because we are living humans and all reactions taking place in our bodies and in entire nature are done without any toxic things and without high pressure and harsh conditions and so on. So, and in the end, long story short, Marek invented a new sustainable catalyst, enabling the reaction at roughly 100 degrees and 20 bar with a yield of more than 95%. So this means the most economically sensible solution is also the most sustainable solution. And this was so mind-blowing. And I find this is a really motivating reaction for green chemistry startups, which really shows how sustainability and economics can go hand in hand for a better tomorrow. Because nobody will say, do I'm choosing the 30% yield reaction and putting even more energy into it, or do I'm choosing the sustainable and 95% yield reaction? So it's like, wow, sustainability is always better for everybody and for the planet.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great idea, also great invention, and perfectly circles back to the beginning where we want to use less energy, less waste, and push all these green and innovative chemistry forward. And it's a great example of that. So thank you very much, Petra, for this really interesting discussion. I learned a lot about all the startups and how to bring your idea to the market. Thank you.
Yes, Kevin, thank you for the opportunity of this interview today. And I'm really looking forward to even more brilliant minds coming to Berlin and really working together on unfolding the sustainable potential of green chemistry, and of course also applying for the Innovate call, which is open now until mid of March 2026. And I'm really looking forward to see many sustainable materials in the market in a couple of years. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Also, thank you very much for listening. If you want to know more about greenCHEM, then check out the links in the show notes. And don't forget to follow on wherever you're listening your podcast. This really helps to grow the show and get new guests on to continue. Until next time, keep innovating and stay curious.